Giant Steps by Benjamin Fussiner. Remember the feeling as a child when you wake up and morning smiled? It's time you felt like that again. There's just no percentage in remembering the past. It's time you learn to live again and love at last. Come with me, leave your yesterday behind, and take a giant step outside your mind. Taj Mahal, Take a Giant Step. Chapter 1. Emma. Ish wasn't my first choice, truth be told. In fact, he was my seventh. It's not that Ish isn't wonderful, filled with qualities that one would look for in a father. It's just that we have some confusing history. As long as I've known him, we'd always just been friends, never even kissed. We did go on a quasi-date once. We ate dinner at a French-Vietnamese restaurant and spent the night looking at old photographs and drinking wine, neither of us sure of the next step. I've had romantic relationships with two of his closest friends, Elliot and Miles. This is how we know each other. When I decided at age 36 that I suddenly wanted a baby, I naively thought securing the sperm wouldn't be that difficult. I had plenty of close male acquaintances. Ruling out in vitro fertilization because of cost, success rates, and time definitely complicated things, but I figured I still had a significant pool of candidates willing to get into bed a few times for an old-fashioned reproductive coital romp. My mom had it easy. When it came time to choosing a progenitor for her children, she chose my father. When I asked her what made him the best choice, she said it was because he was her husband, and that it was the societal norm at the time. This is my mom's type of humor. She followed this statement as she did with any joke, with a self-satisfied grin. She'd be considered a dry wit if she wasn't such an obvious fan of her own work. When I continued to strike out as I made my way down the list of possible donors, I decided I wouldn't include my parents in helping with this choice. I had reached the candidates whose paternal resumes left at least something to be desired, and I doubted I would receive my parents' approval for one reason or another. Just above Ish was Ronald, who was a perfectly acceptable choice in every way other than he was currently spending time in a federal prison for the kind of white-collar crime that doesn't even make the fact that he was a convict sexy. In my mid-20s, I decided I could make decisions without my parents' approval, and by the time I had reached my late 30s, I'd decided I could finally act on that previous decision. Growing up, my parents were involved in all of my life decisions. A family meeting was convened, and even my older brother Andrew would get a vote. This full family committee decided where I went to grade school, ethical culture, whose invitation I accepted for prom, Stuart Finkelstein, college choice, Wesleyan, and the name of my pet fish, Rigoberta Menchú, Birdie for short. One would think that the decision by committee panel would have been abandoned after Rely tampons were chosen as the way I would deal with my period, since we eventually found out that using Rely put me at a higher than average risk for toxic shock syndrome. But this verdict was ruled as inadvertent harm, as the information of the time of the determination was incomplete at best. Chapter 2. Ish. I realize now that I haven't eaten anything. I packed in a hurry and didn't have time to prepare anything. The rice pudding stain on my cargo shorts won't serve as a meal replacement, but I know that one of those side pockets should have a stashed fruit leather that I pilfered from the pantry at my sister Chloe's house during my one-day layover in Chicago. Sure, Chloe would have given me the fruit leather if I'd asked, but it felt like a child's snack, and the last thing I needed was to give Chloe another reason to infantilize me and add me to her growing brood. Yes, growing. Baby number 5 is due in October. I resorted to the habits of a common pickpocket, but had forgotten about the fruit leather's existence, until now. When I first moved to LA, I visited Chloe and her husband Arthur during any number of her maternity leaves. One loses count after a while. But I haven't been to Chicago in years. Our relative stations in life diverging exponentially in line with the adult-to-child ratio in her home. Because she runs a mini mess hall, she has the kind of stocked cupboard that I've only seen in reruns of family TV shows of the 60s and 70s. I reach into my pocket and finger hunt for the familiar plastic sleeve, only slightly ashamed that I've taken what rightfully belongs to my nieces and nephews. I need to act fast or face confiscation from TSA. Midway Airport is the bastard stepchild of O'Hare. The TSA agents know this and take out their aggression, born of their station status, on the poor saps who couldn't muster up the courage to face the overwhelmingness that one encounters at O'Hare, one of the busiest transfer stations in the country, if not the busiest. Trying to do two things at once was never my strong suit, and I accidentally find myself taking a bite of my pre-printed boarding pass. My distraction can be blamed on Chloe, or at least that's where I can place the blame. She chose our last few moments together before my taxi arrived to bring me to the airport to lay into me about my decision. "You're going to regret it," she insisted, on carrying my bag from the porch to the curb, in spite of her pregnant state and me holding virtually nothing. Chloe is the oldest, our brother Alex the middle, and if it isn't patently obvious, I am the baby. Because you regret your 4.5 children? Hey, that's not fair. I don't regret my children, and you know it. But I am in their lives. That's the point. Chloe, I heard you, and I can assure you I feel totally comfortable with my decision. Please, Ish, this isn't just a summer of fun sex. The cab driver's interest is piqued. The end result, if all goes the way Emma wants it to, will be a child, and your DNA will be running around in this world. You're going to want to be part of that life. Trust me, I know. Just think of it like a gift. I'm giving Emma this gift that she wants. That's all I'm doing. You're giving away too much. The door of the taxi closes. The window is rolled down. If you didn't know we're sister and brother, you'd think we're shooting a rom-com. Ish, Chloe finished and leaned in to kiss me on the forehead. Think about your own needs for once. Chapter 3. Emma. The true privilege of living alone is being able to poop in peace. When I was growing up, pooping in my house was referred to as "call you when I'm done," the name derived from what my brother, when he was a toddler, would yell as he ran to the bathroom, letting my parents know they needed to prepare themselves to swoop in the end in order to handle the imminent butt wiping. Even my adult parents would slink off to the bathroom and declare, "I've got to go, call you when I'm done." My brother and I shared a bathroom that served as the connector between our 2 bedrooms. When I think back on my time spent in that space, I can't conjure a memory that doesn't involve Andrew's continuous knocking on the door, demanding entry. Then college, and its shared dorm experiences, the lingering scent of toothpaste, vomit, and hairspray reminding you that you're never alone. I can remember the panic attacks I'd have simply considering visiting my friend Sheila at her hippie commune that passed itself off as a school. Her dorm, with open co-ed bathrooms that connected hallways. The drunk freshmen passing through, party surfing, would give me anxiety-induced constipation for my entire visit. Then the postgraduate roommate years, and on and on and on. Ish's arrival was going to mean a shared bathroom once again. The first time in more than a decade. Though he was too old for the kind of door-pounding that Andrew used to haunt my childhood, his presence would be felt just outside the door, waiting, judging, and worst of course, smelling. I drank my senna tea and waited. One final purge before he interrupted my solitude. I sat on the back deck with my hands wrapped around the warm bevels of the mug I'd made in high school ceramics class, letting the steam rise to my nostrils, noting the nearly overflowing ashtray, a task to put off for another day. I looked out over the crowded backyards waiting for other humans to go about their humanity for my viewing pleasure. The stirring began within, ready for evacuation. I wandered back in, headed to the toilet, and pushed aside the ovulation test stick boxes that were perched on the commode.